Hello, my name is Peter Cinnamon, and you're very welcome to a podcast which is all about the Irish League, where it's all killer, no filler this week, as we're going to be reviewing the momentous Irish Cup semi-finals that took place over the weekend. But all eyes are now turning to the final stretch of the league, the fabled split. We're going to be taking a deeper look at each team's prospects going in to the last 5 games, who will benefit from the fixtures assigned their way, who could be poised for a late run, and what are the matchups to keep your eyes on, which are likely to have the biggest impact on the destiny of this league season. If the prospect of that doesn't get your heart buzzing, you might need to check for a pulse, as this is your latest weekly edition of Kicking Match. And suddenly, as the clocks go forward and we enter the great month of April, we are now in the final month of the Irish League season, my friends. Yes, the Irish Cup will be happening in May, but we'll get down to that. Last 30 or so days, and to celebrate that, to look forward to this festival of football, I've got the gang back together. They're very happy as well, representing the banner that is Around the Grounds NI. First, it's Joe McCallion.
Hello, Peter. I'm good. How about yourself?
The other happy man on this podcast, it's Ross Welsh.
Yep, I'm top of the world, Peter.
I'm good, but I know the both of you separately and combined are even better. I booked this ages ago. It could have been a little opening somber moment to the podcast, but it is now a moment of celebration for you both. I'm sure you're excited that you can look forward to the big cup final in May and that you'll be sitting opposite each other in different stands representing your beloved Cliftonville and Linfield respectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait for it. Ross, you're on recording duty that day because I won't be sitting down that whole time.
So we're obviously talking about the games that happened over the weekend. Glentoran and Linfield, Larne, Cliftonville. I mean, Friday night is where we will start. And a game that felt as though it could be maybe on the blink. Was it going to happen? There was a tiny bit of rain in the lead up. We saw the puddles in that oval pitch. If that game did not go down, I felt as though it would just really burst the bubble throughout the league. This is one of the biggest non-league fixtures, non-Boxing Day fixtures in ages. There's going to be a big crowd there. It was the Bell Classico. Seasons were on the line. And before we get into the game, it got there. The sunshine came. I'm sure the grounds people did a great job at the Oval. However, it's not a great feeling that we're still sitting here at the end of March thinking, is this game going to go ahead or not?
Yeah, not a good look, and obviously it would have been even worse if it didn't go ahead, because probably just getting dropped in on a Tuesday or Wednesday night somewhere, numbers obviously wouldn't have been as good as they were. Fair play to the groundsmen for getting it on. In the end, I've seen that oval pitch looking a lot worse at other times, and obviously they've got their plans to put in a plastic pitch there, which hopefully alleviates that problem going forward. But yeah, it kind of had to be got on that night, and fair play. At least the Glens grounds crew were up for it.
There was a lot of the summer football LOL jibes in the lead up to that, and it did get me thinking that this season we have had our weather affected games, but the more I kind of thought about it, I was like, actually a lot of them do seem to happen at the Oval. And as you said, there is going to be alterations and changes to that ground. For this semi-final, there was that big question, where was this going to be played? There was only really 2 venues that could hold such a big game and cater to the amount of fans that would be looking to go. And it was either going to be the National Stadium or it was going to be at the Oval. Linfield are well used to playing big games in their home stadium. I don't know how the IFA came to their decision, but they gave this game to the Oval. And as much as, yes, it did get across the line and it did happen, this does put a question mark around, should the Oval be trusted for such a big fixture in the future? Because there's been so many times, be it frost or particularly excessive rain. Now, there was rain last week, but we were not in storm, insert silly first name here territory. I think it's fair to say the people that are saying this was bordering on a 3 strikes territory, you can see where they're coming from.
Absolutely. I think back to when it was a little bit rainy. Should we change this to Windsor? Sort of get it early, so then everybody can change their plans and the game definitely goes ahead. The Oval's quirks and charms are talked about a lot, but that path out of the away end is treacherous at the best of times. And when you see the rain coming down, you just think, is this going to put people off going? I know quite a few elderly people didn't go just because of obviously the weather, but also getting in and out. And it does get to the point where you have to think, do we have to just take the Oval out of the running for games like this? And don't get me wrong, I understand Glentoran's want to have a not just that Windsor game, but when it gets to that point, I think you just have to draw a line in the sand and say, look, this is just the best decision.
Well, be it the weather or whatever reasons, there was some people who decided not to turn up to that game on Friday night. The big one, of course, being the Glentoran first team, as they got swept away by Linfield very, very easily. I mean, big game, European football on the line. They now have a second bite of the cherry with the league. But, Joe, I don't think Glentoran were ever in danger of winning that game, and I don't think Linfield were particularly exciting, thrilling, enthralling, impressive in their own right.
No, I didn't think so either. I mean, on the way into the match, it's obviously different for Ross being his own team. We have a bit of nerves, but I only ever saw that match going one way. At no point did I ever think Glentoran were going to get the better of Linfield that night. And as you say, it didn't even really feel like Linfield got out of second gear. Even when Glentoran scored that goal, like there wasn't really nerves in the crowd or anything at any point. It was just, they've got one back, but you knew that they were going to go on to just win the game anyway.
There was a big chance, of course, earlier on for Singleton, and I mean, it was not a particularly free-flowing game for either side. Linfield were absolutely dominating the midfield, and Glentoran almost looked like a team from the bottom six. They were trying to play these high balls and try and release O'Connor. It's like they were trying to soak up pressure, but as they soaked up pressure, the press from Linfield just cut out any type of coherent counter-attack, and the goal was coming for Linfield, and when it did, Glentoran, it just gave Linfield more confidence in it. And for that to be at your home stadium, a lot more on the line, the team has a lot to prove, a couple of players' contracts are up. That will be the most disappointing thing from Glentoran fans.
Yeah, they were toothless all night, and as Joseph said, there was no real panic when they did score. It was almost as if like that's a good chance at a clean sheet gone. Oh well. And then obviously we went up and scored pretty quick after. So yeah, I've seen a lot of Glen men on complaining about the team selection, and I could have told you that wasn't the team they should have went with. I've seen a lot of people querying why Jay Donnelly started, why Junior and Whiteman didn't start. And, it was just, there was no fight out of them at all. And then when you add in that there is just this gulf in quality, at the minute, it was only ever going one way, this game.
The man who's coming out of this game in particular with the most amount of shine is Cal McLean. I feel there's a lot of momentum behind him being in contender for Player of the Year. Getting 2 goals in that game will very much help his stock. And they were tight little goals, especially that second one that he just thumped in. All the goals pretty much come from Glentoran not properly dealing with the ball coming in, not clearing their lines and letting that ball bounce for a player to take on. And that'll be the frustrating thing. As much as for Linfield, they had a majority of the possession, they did not tear the Glentoran team to bits. It fell to them every single time.
Didn't have to, and don't want to belittle Glentoran. Obviously, when there's that gap in quality, you can't give away cheap goals at set pieces, and to do it 3 times is just criminal. And I can see why their fans are kicking off, because they just made it so easy for us. We didn't have to, play through them. It was just, here's 3 goals, have them. And don't get me wrong, 3 brilliant finishes, but it was boys against men.
Just before kickoff, for Declan Devine, who's in on this really long job interview, if he won that game and got into the final, yes, there'd be a lot to go, but his name is right at the top of the hat. Now he's got a lot to do to really win over Glentoran fans, because it hasn't worked there. Yes, they'll want to get different players in, and I know that we're talking a lot about Glentoran, but they are the story here. The players didn't seem to really fight for the team, battle. It was all quite pedestrian, and they just accepted their fate from early on.
I think you're right. Glentoran are the story, because I think Linfield winning wasn't the surprise. It's how poor Glentoran were, especially as you say. it was such a big game for them. And now, like, they have a lot of work to do. The only positive for them in the split is they have a lot of home games, I guess. But even then, like, there was a lot of chance, obviously, if your season's over from the Linfield lot towards the Glens, and I don't know how much the fans will feel that. They might not have great home support anyway, even for those home games over the next couple of weeks.
So just in terms of Glentoran in the league, I read earlier that Sevens might not get a playoff spot because I believe Loughgall and Dungannon don't have European licenses. So then fourth gets a bye into the final. It saves one extra game. But see, at the minute, the skid that Glentoran are on, Crusaders only 1 point behind. You wouldn't put it past Crusaders going on and opening a bit of a gap there. And then obviously momentum's the big buzzword when it gets to the European playoffs. If Glentoran are down in the dumps, then you fancy a good Crusaders team to beat them, and it would be at home if Crusaders leapfrog them, obviously.
It's these thin lines. You keep going for a certain amount of the season, then it all comes down to this business end. So, look, Linfield go into the split feeling pretty good about themselves. They're now in the cup final, and that result then set up Cliftonville, who have been nipping at the heels of Larne and Linfield for a majority of the season. They're in that area of third, a precarious area of third, because if Glentoran was into the final, then it would add a little question on if that third place was going to guarantee them European football. It pretty much has, because Linfield are in it now, and while Cliftonville are in it, third is going to go to, it's got a European place is going to go to third. Yes, they could be caught, but I mean, I can't see. They would have to go on a terrible run, and I think it's just 2 points they require for Cliftonville to secure third. So that was a nice bit of relief for Cliftonville going into that semi-final, where they're not thinking we have to do well here, so we don't let ourselves down for the European football side of things. Saturday evening, second half of this doubleheader, Larne, who are this team who have only lost 90 minutes once, I believe, and that's Loughgall, the other game being Linfield in the League Cup. Cliftonville, who haven't had a great record in either the Irish Cup or against the top sides this season. And I think Cliftonville had one of their best performances of the season, and Larne probably had one of their worst. And that all equaled out to a 2-0 victory for the Reds. What a season for Cliftonville now, all of a sudden, from that game.
What a season indeed. I mean, Jim and everyone else got that absolutely spot on Saturday night. I was nervous going into it. I did believe that we would get the result, but I didn't quite expect the match to go the way it did. I mean, not only as a team did we perform absolutely brilliant, but there was some unbelievable individual performances in there. Johnny Addis had one of the best centre-half performances I think I've ever witnessed, both defensively and getting forward. He was absolutely unbelievable. And the 2-0, it could have been more. I mean, Hale had a chance at the end. He maybe should have scored it to Joe Gormley, but I mean, it didn't matter in the end. So I was ecstatic leaving the ground that night, and now I'm feeling good come the final.
You're right. Addis is the player, a bit like McLean, who's coming out with all the shine. He gets that first goal. A great little bit of work from the corner, back and forward. And then the cross comes in at the back post. Addis has to win that battle one-on-one, leaping for the ball. And he gets to it. There's a lot of work to be done from liftoff. He gets there, heads it in, and Cliftonville have control. This is after a majority of that half where Cliftonville weren't getting it out of their own half that much. They were trying to keep in possession. Larne were trying to chase them down. There had been the odd flash where Larne maybe looked as though they were going to snatch under the ball, but they didn't. And that goal really shifted the momentum. It's not something Larne are used to going in at the half behind, and that's the position they were in. And then after the break, Cliftonville just looked to grow in confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly the way I would say it myself. I mean, we played out from the back quite well, which is difficult against, Bonus and Ryan up top because they press very well. So there was a lot of pressure on, Casey and Addis. And I think we're still missing that sort of, obviously with Gallagher leaving that time, we're still missing that sort of player who's going to come in and collect and then move into the midfield and in the attacking option. So we were going long a wee bit in the first half, which was a bit frustrating because with that defence that Larne have, it's difficult to go long against them. But I think in the second half, as the confidence grew with the goal, we kept the football on the ground, started playing the way we would play at Solitude. And with that bigger pitch, I think we just stretched Larne quite well. And then the second half, we looked like a completely different team again. I think everyone was a bit nervy in the first half, even with the goal. But once we started playing our football, everyone sort of settled down. You could see the team settled down as well. At no point really towards the end did anyone look nervous on the pitch. It looked like we knew, yeah, we've got 7 minutes of extra time here to play, but we feel confident that we're gonna pull through here.
Larne were very much pushed back in that second half, a lot deeper than what we usually see them. We're so used to Ives and Cosgrove having the ball, crossing that white line of the halfway line, looking up, saying, how are we going to build from here? And it was the complete opposite in that second half, where you had 5, 8 men behind the ball, exactly where Cliftonville want to be, passing along that wing of 5 players, and they just seem to have more confidence. And the great thing, and one of the big differences between the teams that really helped Cliftonville win out, is that your back line, I know Addis is getting a lot of kudos here as well, they shackled Ryan and Bonus. They were able to try and limit those chances, those balls over the top. You don't want to get caught in a foot race. So many teams are completely undone by that. Cliftonville played their own game, and they didn't get caught up in the midfield where Lauren will happily try and gobble up that ball. And I wonder now, you don't want to overanalyze, but this now sets up the rest of the season, because so much people are saying, yes, Lauren are on this great run. They look unwavering. They look great against the top teams. They don't have a huge amount of points at the top, and you wonder how they're going to react, because they didn't act particularly great within that game to going a goal down. They'll have to play Cliftonville again. I'm sure a lot of people will be listening to this knowing the result of that game, but they have 2 more games against Cliftonville to go, Linfield and all the rest, and now we are going to see what they are truly made of, and if they can just put this to the side, or will this linger in their minds?
I think that's the blueprint now for every other team playing Lauren to the end of the season. I've never seen Lee Bonus bullied out of a game like that before. He barely had a sniff. There's the plan for every team, starting with Cliftonville, obviously. Don't let him get the ball, which is obviously, easier said than done, but he was nowhere near it on Saturday. And then obviously Cliftonville going forward, brilliant. The sniffs that Lauren did have was a couple of Cricky Gallagher pot shots, which, Otamusu, couple of nice saves. But, I can't really remember Lauren cutting through Cliftonville and thinking, oh, that was a big chance there.
It's a one-off game, and it's one that now Cliftonville will feel the love, they'll feel the momentum. I'm sure that's boosted their fans to have a big final like that. It's going to be a huge game. What a showpiece game we've got to look forward to at the end of the season. Linfield against Cliftonville. We don't know if either of these teams will be on for the double at that point, but regardless, I mean, it's been an interesting set of fixtures this year between these two teams. It could be a tactical battle, it could be a quite open classic. From a spectacle point of view, this is going to be something great come May.
Yeah, surely we're looking at a sellout crowd, or as close to it as they're allowed to get in terms of football, and I think that's just going to be a horrible afternoon. Whether it's open or tactical in KG, it's just going to be the worst couple of hours of the year.
Yeah,
because like, as much as you want to win the cup, it's a lot about, let's not have Cliftonville break this hoodoo against us as well.
And of course, it sets up a treble then for Linfield as well, if they were to come back, win the Gibson Cup, and then sneak the Irish Cup for a season which many people were complaining halfway through. This is one of the worst Linfield sides ever. It's them trying to reclaim their spot atop of football here in Northern Ireland. They have got a massive month ahead, which could look very differently when you look at the history books now.
It's every year it's a bad Linfield team. I can't wait till we have a good team. We might win the Champions League. I don't know, but it's every year, and it seems we go through a wee patch where you just think, oh, the wheels are falling off a wee bit, but we seem to turn it around and we're always up there. So you never know. Lauren are looking good, obviously, but as I say, there's the blueprint, there's the plan. Why not?
Joe, are you just looking forward to the cup final now? The league can be forgotten about, or does this all of a sudden light a fire under every Reds fans thinking, we're not out of this league just yet?
I was going to say, no, I think that'd probably give a lot of us quite a bit of belief. I don't know if we probably thought we were out of it already, but obviously it's going to be really
Your
tough.
own manager pretty much said that dreams have been shattered for a league title, so
Well,
you
that
know.
is true. I think realistically thinking the league probably is too far away, considering it's Linfield ahead, that we're probably relying on taking points off Lauren and they're getting further away. I'd like to. I'm looking forward to the match tomorrow because I am a bit nervous about it. It's one of those games, if you win in the cup, how often do you then lose against that team the next time? So I'm a bit nervous for the game tomorrow. I think if we win that, I'll be a lot more confident going ahead. But I'm excited. I'd like the cup final. I'm nervous for as well because obviously, as you say, struggle against the big teams sometimes, especially Linfield. But the way we dispatched of Lauren there, who knows? Maybe come the final, we'll have a similar tactical performance and we'll be laughing.
We're approaching the end of our second season on the podcast, and as we went through, we've had little traditions along the way, and I hope this is one that we can add to the wheelhouse. We've got 5 games to go after the set of fixtures on Tuesday for those 4 teams, and we have the split ahead of us, the thing we've talked about all year. And with that, as much as we haven't got all of our fixtures in front of us, as a collective, all 3 of us are going to pontificate the potential for some of these teams in our pre-split preview. We're going to go team by team, a bit like we do at the start of the season. We're going to see this little mini league season, and we're going to ask, what are the hopes and dreams in these next 5 games? What can be achieved? And analyse some of the fixtures that this split is going to leave us with. So we're going to base this on the assumption that Carrick have not beaten Linfield, whatever it is, 5-6-0. And if we do, well, I'm just going to have to hastily take this down and edit it. But we do have broadly, or at least I spent the time on Easter Sunday going through every team and trying to nail down what the home and away fixtures are. I'm trying to think where we will start. It's probably interesting, just as the outsiders right now, to go to Cliftonville because they have probably come out of this split the worst because you've only got 1 home game in the split.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't when you sent that to us the other day, I couldn't believe looking at that. I didn't realize it was that bad actually. Just Glentoran at home. So yeah, the split's it's gonna be a bit of a tough one. I don't even know how I'm feeling for it, to be honest with you. I guess again it depends how tomorrow goes against Lauren. If that goes well, then the confidence is high. I think we can go on and win the league.
Cliftonville are sitting on 73 points currently. Above them, then you have Linfield on 75, Larne on 77. So, of course, the dream is going into the split that it's the Reds on 73, Linfield on 75 because they've been beaten 6-0 by Carrick, and then Larne are on 77. It's 2 points in you, Linfield, 4 between yourself and Larne. Ladies and gentlemen, rev your engines. With that still being yet to be decided, because of course a win for Larne completely changes everything. That game really does decide a lot because, 10 points, you are out of it. And then you are pretty much waiting for the cup final to come. As a squad, do you feel like they're healthy? Do you think if you get the 3 games to go and you're 7 points off, what's Little and Magilton thinking? Because, like we said, you've got Glentoran at home, Linfield away, Coleraine away, Asterix, Crusaders away, Larne away. The worst thing there is to finish 4 points off and Alice is out and one of the heels is iffy.
No, 100%. I mean, I think it will come down to that. If tomorrow goes against us and we're out of it in the last couple of games, there's no chance. I think we are going to start to be running out the young players and just have our minds on that final. I don't see why we would take those risks, as you say, someone like Addis being out or Curran or one of the heels. There's no point taking that risk. So this game tomorrow is massive as to what way the split goes for us, really. If we win it, then we're going to be taking those risks and God knows what happens when it comes to the final, what sort of team would be playing.
We're in a funny little deal or no deal scenario where the 2 boxes that you have are pretty great. It's like historically amazing winning the league and cup, and that's like that's still technically there and could happen, and that's like the dream scenario which is still there. And then like the lowest box you have in this scenario is finish third, still get Europe, and hopefully have a great day out in the mystery box that is the final. Like, that wasn't on offer 2 weeks ago, and right now you're thinking, well, definitely would have shooken on that about 2 months ago.
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those things, isn't it? If you had to offer me that, certainly at the start of the season, the views on this season were completely different then. So looking at it now, already you can really say it was a successful season for Jim, and it's promising as to what's to come. But obviously, when you're here, you want it all, don't you? So who knows? I mean, it's football, isn't it? So maybe we could end up with a double on our hands.
Look, I don't think anybody doubted that this Cliftonville side was going to go on the run that they have, and I'm sure there's absolutely no recorded evidence of anybody doubting them. But yes, with a month ago, it's a pretty good spot to be a Cliftonville fan, despite the fact that there will be just a mere one venture to solitude in the split. Going then to Linfield, their fixtures are kind of up in the air. You'll be looking at that game with one eye while also taking on Carrick on Tuesday. It's an even affair. You have come out of it pretty well, Ross, for Linfield. Home to Larne, home to Cliftonville. That's what you want. You just haven't completed the dream scenario because you've got the Glens away. So you've got Glens away, Crews away, Coleraine, Cliftonville, Larne at home. You're hoping for a Cliftonville result because then it could put you first going into the split, but you'll feel happy the way the chips have fallen.
Yeah, 100%. It's in our hands as it stands. I'm happy enough with how the home and aways have landed. I think the one away you'd want to avoid is Coleraine because, that they've stifled Larne up there. The only issue is, the partial ban for the home matches.
That is something we must address. It was brought up either last week or the week before. All that talk of full stadium ban for home fans, that has been walked back upon appeal, where, as you said, it's members and season ticket holders, and there is this little asterisk behind it where, kind of on probation pretty much, where, okay, but any more silly business between now and the 31st of December, then the bans will come in, but if you can stay good, then all's reset. Interesting date. A lot of criticisms out there for it, but I guess you have to draw your line in the sand somewhere. No doubt that's a topic we'll come back to, but it's a boost for Linfield for those games against Larne and against Cliftonville. It looks to be have fans back in, potentially going in first, or at least, as you said, the title will be in your hands based on your own results. It's been an up and down season for Linfield. They've been able to stay the course relatively. League Cup in the back pocket, Irish Cup there. It's this mini league which they have to now show up finally. And having Joe Cooper back is an excellent little ace in your pack.
Huge, great to see him back on the score sheet again the other night. Looks like he's never been away. Well documented issues that we don't really have that out and out goal score at the minute. But when we're chipping in like that from midfield and out wide, we hopefully won't go too far wrong.
For you, the big games will just be Larne and Cliftonville, and trying not to fall on the banana skins of others. You're probably even looking at the Crews and Coleraine as relief almost, or the slightly easy. Well, there's no easy games in the split, and it's just sometimes how the fixtures can fall to you. Home against Larne, they were excellent there against you guys early on in the season. Would you take a draw in that game right now?
Very tentative, yes, I would, because I just feel like the chinks in the armour are there now with Larne after Saturday there. I don't think they're going to go 15 points out of 15. So I think a draw is fine there. They'll drop points elsewhere. And you just have to back us to win every other game. Kind of hope that, outside of Larne and Cliftonville, the other teams are on the beach. And they're sort of looking one eye on that European playoff, easing off. But that's kind of the beauty of the split, isn't it? Cliftonville 7 points off the pace at the minute, and we're still talking about them as genuine title contenders just because of the way it's set up this year. It's brilliant.
I've seen a few slightly snarky remarks about this as we go to Larne. They have 3 home games, 2 away. Cliftonville, Coleraine, and Crusaders at home. Both Glentoran and, as we said, Linfield away. 0 Friday night games, I guess now at least scheduled. It's pretty much the weekend of 6th, 13th. You got a Tuesday night game And then Saturday the 27th is one that's absolutely nailed on. I wonder how many of those games, if at all, any of them get moved to. We all know Lauren can win outside of that window, but it's been a nice comfort blanket for them. And it's just how much that cup final will play into it. I mean, you can't just start talking about one game completely wrecking them. But if they don't win out on Tuesday night, it's a little thing in the back of their head where 2 games without a victory against tough top opposition, and then they go in to play some more tough teams. So we shouldn't be doubting this side. They've shown how resilient they can be. They closed that gap on Linfield after not a particularly sterling start to the season. However, this is when teams show what they're made of. It's where teams show if you want to win the big boy, you've got to turn up and you've got to shake off any questions. And we've seen this Larne side be technically and mentally strong. It'll all just depend. I think that Linfield game is just huge. They weren't able to totally kill off Linfield last year. It got delayed thanks to some excellent saves from Johns late on. And I wonder, despite all their great attacking force that's all driven by Ryan and Bonus and Leroy Miller's scored a couple of more goals than he might have in other previous seasons. Will there be doubts for Larne, or are they still the favourites right now going into the split?
I think they're still the favourites, but they've certainly got a bloody nose at the minute. And as you say, if Cliftonville manage to do it again, then we'll say it every time the wheels can come off. But if you remember Boxing Day last year, everybody was saying, "Oh, this might be the start of it," and then I don't think they'll ever lose a game to the end of time. They can go on that run. So it does all depend, on the bounce back. I think from Saturday to a degree. If they win against Cliftonville, then I think we're just looking at they'll win at a counter. But it's just you never know if they don't get the result.
Like that game between them and Linfield, it doesn't really matter who finishes first or second. That is based on last year anyway, penciled in for what we describe as match day 37, or the game just before the last. It's funny because whoever comes first or second, first gives you whoever finishes 6th on the final day, and whoever finishes second will have Cliftonville on the final day of the season. So there's slightly, again, all can change, doesn't really matter when you play them, but it's interesting. You probably want to be playing Cliftonville when they're maybe down and out on the last game of the season rather than still hoping for it on the second game of the split.
Yeah, that could be quite interesting actually, because if we end up having Linfield on the last day, it's a bit of a test run for the final. You could find us trying a few things, really going at them, or it could be maybe we don't show our hand, play a completely different way than we do in the final, and we do kind of lie down a bit. So that could be actually quite interesting, that last game. The thing that surprised me about Larne in that semi-final that would be quite interesting for this split is that's the first time I've seen them, you could really get at them, and they got quite emotional. There was a lot of, kicking out and just getting frustrated at each other. And it's maybe the first time I've seen Larne almost lose the head.
Do you think the large Cliftonville support in that stadium played a role putting the likes of Ives, Gallagher and others potentially off their game? Because there was a lot of emotion in that semi-final, and even from watching it on TV, you could hear the boos. And I guess perhaps those players might not be used to it on that scale, on that level. Do you feel it had a role?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, that's one of the best crowds. I know I'm biased, of course, but that's one of the best crowds at an Irish League game that I've seen. They're not used to being booed like that, especially by I'm sure it hurts as well when it comes from fans that you were playing for a long time. Gallagher in the first half, when he was getting booed, actually smiled at one point, which you don't often see a player sort of switch off from the game and take into account what's happening in the crowd. So I think he maybe, there was a couple of players, maybe it was a bit too much. And when things aren't going well and the crowd are on your back like that, as loud as they were, I'm sure that probably did come into it, make them a lot more emotional than they would have wanted to be. But come this game, if they're emotional again, that could be a bit of a thing for the running where maybe he can just get at this Lauren side and really wind them up.
Who is the favourite right now? I think it might be Lauren, but that could all change. I really do think Tuesday night could impact things. Saturday is going to play a role, no doubt. It's finally poised. Lauren, I think, have the better side right now, but Linfield keep proving from McLean, Finlayson, Cooper's now back. Miller is some of his best football I think he's playing at the minute. Fitzpatrick's really strong. Great to have Cooper. It's even, and I think it's too hard to call between Linfield and Larne if we're being totally honest.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one to call. Maybe slightly lean still on Larne just because I've seen the way they played last season, and I maybe still would edge them slightly. So maybe I would still say that Larne are my favourites anyway.
You feel strong the other way, Ross?
No, I think I agree. I think Larne slight favourites, but write the Blues off at your peril. That Larne Linfield game, that's going to be huge.
Now, are Larne the favourites because of their good run going into this previously before the semi-final? Is it because 1-11 they have a bigger, better squad? Why are they the favourites, or is it just that at the minute 2-point gap over Linfield?
I think it's a gap, which obviously could be reversed after tomorrow's matches, but I think it's theirs to lose. We struggle to beat them. They can come to Windsor and just look for a point and be fine with that. And even our squad this year, it's young, it's inexperienced. Lauren, obviously, monkey off their back last year. They've won it now. They know how to do it. I slightly would favour Lauren in that aspect, but as I say, it's a real pick 'em. Just I can make arguments for either side.
I think it's a bit of a mix of a few things. It's not only the squad that Lauren have, but I think we're probably in a bit of a danger of saying, letting one game sort of rule out the way Lauren have played all season. You can have a slip up, and they haven't had many this season. So maybe that's just it's a cup game as well. Anything could happen. So maybe it was just one game off for Lauren, really, and they just come back and just their usual self for the rest of the season. And we're sitting here in a month's time going, yeah, Lauren have done it.
Moving on to the bottom half of the top six. Not a lot on the line between now and the end of the season. 5 games, and to be honest, a couple of these teams have been in this somewhat working pattern for a while now. Glentoran and Crusaders. Glen's currently above the Crews, 1 point difference. They have Larne at home, Linfield at home, Crews at home, and then they're away to Coleraine and Cliftonville. You say one game shouldn't really impact it. That felt like a pretty big game for Glentoran there at the weekend. How will they try and tinker things? Will they be up for this fight knowing that they're guaranteed now to be in this European playoff? Is there a bit of work here that Devine needs to do? Like, I think Devine needs to have an impressive run here if he really wants to take this job on long term, because I do think that defeat's going to live long in their memory for Glentoran fans, and how he now picks his players, sets up his team. I think last year we saw Junior finally find a bit of rhythm up top, and he was key for them to get their European slot. They will be very much a side character, like all of them will be, and that game against Crusaders will somewhat decide who gets home advantage long term. And it's just different for Glentoran because they have that game against Linfield. It's just different compared to other people. I know the Crews will have Cliftonville, but they have the chance to really be a thorn in the side of Linfield, and who's going to turn up. I didn't think Jen Olling was particularly impressive. Getting Fisher back could be good. Getting Marshall back, that'll be a bonus. It's similar in regards to Cliftonville, where you want to avoid injuries, but momentum is always the biggest thing here.
Yeah, I think Declan Devine needs to decide whether he wants to go down the momentum route, but are the Glens good enough to do that, or does he want to just take 5 games and tinker and just see what is my lineup for the playoffs? Because I don't think he's found it. It certainly wasn't what was put out on Friday night. And as you say, Fisher coming back will be big, but I personally would just take these 5 games, say, hey, we can go to Seaview and get a result. Not that big of a deal, really. Let's just find how I'm working this, because there's a lot of square pegs and round holes in that team in the minute. He just has to find what's going to work best for 1 or 2 games.
We don't know what's happening at the top level at the Oval, but do you think if Devine was by hook or by crook able to deliver European football and he wants the job, it's his. Is that really the task here now?
I think it's hard to say no to him if he does get them into Europe. However, that's quite short termism. Anyone can win a one-off game like that.
Is it boom or bust, do you think? That where if he gets it, great, he can have the job if he wants it. But if he doesn't, does that make it difficult for them to sell it to the fan base, knowing that there is potentially other suitors out there still waiting for the call?
Yeah, if he doesn't get Europe, I think that's him, because going after Friday, it seems like the fans have turned against them already.
Isn't that so tough for someone who hasn't been able to get his own team? It's like him or Mystery Door. That was the poison chalice everyone talked about when he took on the job.
It's crazy because what are you supposed to do? Obviously, Roddy McAree turned it around a bit last year, but he wasn't brought in on this short notice, and that you said it. That job is a poison chalice. Like, what are you supposed to do? It feels like Glentoran fans want to win the league yesterday, but that squad just needs cleared out and rubbed out and redrawn, because there's clearly something systemic going on where all these managers now haven't been able to get a tune out of them. And it feels like every pre-season we talk and we say, "Oh, this Glens team, one of the best on paper," but they always just flatter to deceive. And whether it is divine or not, I feel like they just need to give a manager, get the appointment right, and give a manager at least a full season to have a proper whack at it.
For the Crews, they've got Linfield, Cliftonville and Coleraine at home. They're away at the Oval and away to Larne. This is pretty much the Stephen Baxter retirement tour. He'll want to finish on a high, even though there will, of course, be the playoff after this. They have the chance just to somewhat be the bracket buster, you'd say, in American sports. Like, they could just make things awkward. One big result here or there. They have players who are trying to either end their Crusaders' careers on a high, talking about Heatley, and a few others. But then you also have players like Nixon, Boyd, and others who they want to go, you better build your team around me next year, with Cadell sitting there in the wings. So they could be an interesting proposition week to week.
They're in quite a unique sort of camp as well. As you say, you've got Baxter. It's his last couple of games. He's going to want to do well. I'm sure the fans will be in for him for those last couple of games. You've got players leaving, are going to want to leave on a high note. And as you say, there's players that are going to want to say, I need to be a vocal point of this team that you're going to build from now on. So they're in quite an interesting one. Obviously, I think they'll actually be quite tough to come up against over the next while. There could be a real sort of lift. There's something about the split that you often see. Once it goes to split, teams change quite a bit in terms of their belief, and I think this could be a team that you see really start to believe in themselves.
The other team here who are actually finding a bit of form and are not confirmed at the time of recording as a top six side, but come on, Coleraine. We all have been talking about the players that brought in, this new lease of life they've had since they got taken over officially, how they've actually been able to get good results against top teams. They look to be causing trouble for Linfield and Larne when all they wanted to do was have plain sailing against them. They have both Larne and Linfield away after doing some business on them a couple of weeks ago at the Coleraine Showgrounds. They also returned to Belfast for the Crews, and then they welcome up Glentoran and Cliftonville. So they're kind of like the Crusaders side themselves, where they are all playing for contracts who are going to be a part of this, who might be offered a bit more of an incentivized deal to go maybe semi-full time there. So they could cause trouble. And I mean, they're in the arena, for this European playoff spot. So they'll be doing their bits and pieces to stay healthy, try and scope out what this Crusaders and Glentoran sides are all about, and spring a surprise and add a bit of rocket fuel that would be European money to this rebuild and attack next season. Momentum's key going into the playoff, but I think also for Coleraine, momentum's key going into next year.
I think they will have half an eye on next year. They don't have great form in that playoff. Ever since the takeover was announced, it's like a switch has flipped. They look a totally different team. And as you say, they frustrated us, they frustrated Larne, and they could definitely be kingmakers coming into this split.
by doing a job on one of the other teams. That's the funny thing about them. Like for sixth, they'll go against Cliftonville first. They'll play against second before the top two game, and then on the final game of the season, they'll play first. So they will play their role in sixth on either the final day of the season or before it. So Owen Kearney will want to go, look at me now, we're going to be on the other side of this, maybe going for Europe, going for the title, even if it all goes well next season. So I feel for Coleraine as much as I can't see them, well, points-wise, it's pretty much a non-goer, isn't it? For them to jump above either... Yeah, no, it's a non-goer really for them to jump above. I think they'll get a result against one of the top three, and that could be pivotal. When it is, I don't know. Maybe they'll run out of steam, but Coleraine are back up again. It's whatever it was, 5 years in a row we've had these top teams, so it'll be interesting more against the games against Crusaders and Glentoran, like how much, like they'll either be boring 0-0s or like crazy 5-4s or something like that, based on just the situation. The top three's locked in. Glentoran or Crews kind of swap about. It won't really matter too much by our home advantage. That's kind of our top six, isn't it? It's perhaps more intriguing up and down when we get to the bottom six.
Yeah, it's all very fluid down there. There's a lot of positions could swap hands there, and obviously the big change could be at the bottom. But outside of that, there's still a lot to play for, and that seventh place is still up for grabs as well. So plenty to be excited about down there.
We'll go to the top of the headlines in the bottom six, and that's going straight to the bottom. Of course, our 11th and 12th side, Ballymena and Newry. The one thing we know here is that their showdown, there's 2 points between them, their showdown will take place at the Ballymena Showgrounds. Perhaps that is actually beneficial to Newry based on their home record. And when does that game actually get played? Based on the course of previous years, that should happen on the same weekend, the 37th. It's that game, the game just beforehand. So, of course, either side could be home and hose in that regard. Like, when it comes to scratching 10th, that just ain't happening, is it? It's 13 points between Ballymena and Dungannon. That would have to be a massive, awful drop for Dungannon for that to happen. So you can pretty much lock these in as 11th or 12th. For Newry, they have Loughgall and Dungannon at home, as well as Carrick, and then they'll go away to Ballymena and Glenavon. I think actually Glenavon is one of the few away wins they got, and obviously they'll play Carrick every week if they could, based on the way it's gone this season. For Ballymena, they're home against Newry, home against Glenavon, and then they have to play Carrick, Loughgall and the Swifts away. Clearly their one-on-one game is going to be the key fixture here, but I mean, you go on a run against the other teams, that fixture could be irrelevant at that point, particularly come the penultimate game of the season. I was talking last week about this being a big deal with Mr. McNabb. Are you two split? Who would you back out of Newry and Ballymena going into this 5-game stretch as the team you have an inkling on is going to make their way up to 11th? That doesn't guarantee safety at all, but it can certainly avoid automatic relegation.
I fancy Newry to win the head-to-head, but outside of that, I would back Ballymena to get points elsewhere a lot more. So I'd probably just give Ballymena the advantage just because they're ahead as it stands. But still a massive game. I might be the first person to ever fly in for Ballymena Newry.
I don't know. I think I don't see it changing. I think Ballymena might stay just ahead of them, but I think my take on it would be that neither team is safe. I think come that playoff, whoever does finish 11th, I could see either of them losing to whoever's coming up from the championship. I think this could be a year that we see 2 new teams in the league, but I see it sort of staying the same.
Tell me about it. It might not be a particularly exciting game on the pitch, like X's and O's, but I mean from a pure visceral viewing experience, I mean it's kind of like what people would describe like the madness of NASCAR. You're not there for the beauty of it. You're there for just what could happen and what could go down. Club's futures on the line there. Going game by game, I think they'll probably, just with the tension of it, maybe one goal will sneak it, but I can see that just being a nervous affair between them, and that's a draw. Ballymena away to Carrick, don't particularly feel confident. At home to Glenavon, just depends with that. Away to Loughgall, I think Loughgall will win that. And then the Swifts away, Dungannon can score plenty of goals. Will they still be rocking and rolling there? It's for Newry. They go away to Glenavon. They've won there before this year. And will Glenavon do anything different away to Ballymena? Home to Loughgall. Loughgall should win out there, but they drew with Newry only a couple of weeks ago. Home to the Swifts. There's been a little kind of few tasty games between them, particularly that one where should they have let the ball go or whatever it was, did they play advantage or not? And then home to Carrick, a team they have beat a couple of times before. If I was to give Newry a win against Glenavon and let's say 2 draws against the Swifts and Carrick, and we're going to give that game between Newry and Ballymena as a stalemate. So if I was to give Newry 5 points right now, that would take them up to 22 points. Could Ballymena get 3? I think they probably could somewhere. I think that maybe puts it in a different light and how massive their game between them. Well, it would be, 23, but, they would also get a point to get up to 20. I mean, that shows you the difference, where if Newry don't win out on that, they will need to get big results elsewhere.
That game is absolutely massive between the two of them. As Ross said, I could maybe see Ballymena picking up points elsewhere, but it's really interesting because, I mean, at the start of the season, we said ourselves, we could see that, Jim had quite a difficult job on his hand with Ballymena. It was going to be tough, but I've seen them a few times this season. They have good individual players. So, as I say, the split kind of can ignite something in a team sometimes. Maybe this could be something where we see something start to come together for them, but the difficulty they have in scoring goals, it's going to be really interesting. So I think that game against the two of them is absolutely massive.
Goal difference also is pivotal here. There's just no way Newry going to claw that back unless Ballymena get thumped by somebody and Newry thumps somebody else. Even at that, it's not really go. You're going to need that once or twice. I think that's a point, obviously, to them. So I have a gut feeling this is going to go down the goal difference, and that's going to be where it is, and how important that game will be. Newry have to win that to get only just a point above Ballymena, because if Ballymena can hold on there, they can play defence, they can take those draws. Newry will need to turn draws, and that's even turning. They don't need to turn losses into draws, they need to turn them into wins. So that just shows how, even though it's this end of the season and there's only so many games, how little things like goal difference and those head-to-heads are going to be the ones that will decide it. My prediction is Ballymena will get 11th based on goal difference now. But, I mean, we're going to look at that every week and be fascinated by it. So I'm just about back in Ballymena. Have I got any more that will join me?
What also sways it for Ballymena for me is the timing of that game. Because if they do lose the Newry, there's almost not enough time for them to panic. Because it's then just last game of the season, win out, and then worry. Don't even worry. But if that's first game of the split and Newry win, all of a sudden Ballymena go, whoa. And, the wheels can come off from there. But I think the time of that helps them. And that goal difference, we said every year about Newry, that they take some hidings against the bigger teams and possibly going to come back to cost them this year.
Yeah, because Newry go to Glenavon this Saturday. Ballymena will take on 7th, so that will be a tougher situation, But then, of course, Ballymena will get they'll go with Glenavon, so that will be week to week. But overall, yeah, I'm going to back Ballymena. Elsewhere, the only other thing that's on the line, like if we go to the Swifts and Glenavon, Glenavon could, based on a good run, still sneak in 7th, but it's the same way. I mean, there's 5 points between them and Loughgall, 4 points between them and Carrick Rangers. Of course, Carrick winning this 6-0 against Linfield. Could be a lot more. We all know what Glenavon are looking to do. End a season on a high, while also try and figure out who this team is, what this team is, who are the building blocks they we can name good players in Campbell. I like Duna at the back there. Is Ward sticking around? What about Wallace? You have a few other bits and pieces. It's going Jack Malone plus who else? Isaac Bird probably, Prendergast. Like we talked about for Cliftonville maybe playing the young players, seeing it out. How much do Glenavon tinker and change, and then how does that impact other people? They go away to Ballymena, usually a fun fixture, but previous times both these teams were better. Then they have Newry at home, Carrick at home, away to the Swifts, away to Loughgall. It's pride on the line. It's McDonald trying to build it up. It's just really hard to read into Glenavon right now. It's just all next season.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a bit of a difficult one, isn't it? Whether he's going to tinker a bit more, and you could see that team changing week on week. As you say, they're not. I mean, they're 5 points behind Loughgall at the moment. Maybe there is a belief in that squad of, can we get up to that 7th position? But I don't see it personally. I think those two teams ahead of them, and Carrick and Loughgall, I don't see them dropping enough points to be caught. But I have a feeling that both Glenavon and Swifts could have a bit of not a nothing split, but I just don't think there'd be much going on between them, really. It might just be a bit of let's look on the next season.
For the Swifts, they have the opposite to Cliftonville. They've got 4 games at home. Those are Ballymena, Carrick, Glenavon and Loughgall. They welcome up the Stangmore, and they just have Newry away. A nice chance to end the season, a season which has had some really nice highs, not particularly epic lows. They've been great to watch. They've scored plenty of goals once again. They just concede all the time. They have nice little strong pieces. The problem is at Dungannon, people notice this and they pick them off all the time. Macquarie adds a great amount of stability to them, and I think that those are the games. Dungannon games will either be thrillers or bores.
Yeah, I think we could see a real free flow in Dungannon. They're sort of in that island of nothing, which, good for the fans, nothing to worry about. Realistically, if they got to the playoff, would they have been competitive anyway? No. So I think sort of 9th, 10th would have been their aim for the season anyway. So I think they'll be happy enough. And, another pre-season and transfer window under Rodney, maybe start building, because, they were in dire straits at one point last year. So I think they'll be happy enough to just steady the ship.
Yeah, compared to last year, was that game against Portadown near the end of the season where it was kind of a Jordan Jenkins bit of magic from him sent Portadown down, and Dungannon were in the mix there at that point. So they'll be happy not to be in that and have that nice little safety blanket of all the points. So boring but safe is what they'll take. What will not be boring, neither of these teams have been boring. Our final 2 previews, Carrick against Loughgall. They will face off in this brilliant set of fixtures that will be game 37 when 8th plays 7th. How much will still be on the line at that point, as you were alluding to? Loughgall might not be or look not to be even in the European race because of licensing stuff. Pretending that they are, I think Carrick are going to try and go on a tear. They probably should have started this tear a lot earlier on, and I'm sure it'll all kick off thanks to their 7-0 drubbing of Linfield. They have Ballymena at home, Loughgall at home, and then go to Newry away, Glenavon away, Swifts away. I think they'll just throw open the gates and just go far forward, let's give this a go, and they could be fascinating to watch because they and Stuart King will want 7th. They're so hungry for it, and they haven't really shown that they perhaps deserve it based on the results they've had recently. But as teams tire and wither away, I think they'll take advantage, and Danny Gibson could be very much padding out his stats as the season goes towards its eventual close at the end of April.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. You could see Gibson really throw up his numbers against that bottom, the rest of the bottom 6. I mean, Loughgall have done really well to be there. I think they've had an absolutely smashing season. Whereas I think Carrick will be thinking we need to get 7th. You could have one of those things where Loughgall are thinking we've done so well to be here, let's not get it, give it away. But I just think maybe Carrick might be the stronger of the two sides when things get flowing. Loughgall seem to be quite a tough enough team to go to. So the fact that game is, at Carrick could be a decider then for what way that game's going to go.
It's so much on the line. It will be like a cup tie. Carrick, it's been a good season, but there's been so much potential, and I think if they haven't and don't get seventh, it will feel like a real missed opportunity. It's been good. We're delighted to be here again, but because Loughgall or maybe even Glenavon were able to supersede them and take that place, it'll make you feel like it's not that impressive. Like there's been lots of good things to take from it, but there's been so many frustrating, inconsistent things there. It's a round robin. They'll take it week by week. Like if we were to play the same game between Ballymena and Newry, I think Loughgall just have a nice run. Ballymena at home, Glenavon at home. They go away to Newry. They've got Carrick away, as you said, and they also go away to the Swifts because pretty much everybody's going away to the Swifts. I just like the way that's set out. I've seen them a lot recently. They beat out Glenavon away. They probably will do it at home. They've got 9 points already against Ballymena. Maybe they'll dish them the point right now. It's similar to the bottom two, where right now there's only 1 point's the difference, and Loughgall have the 1 point advantage and the better goal difference. It's not the same amount of stakes, but do you have a team that you would back here, Ross? I think similar maybe to Ballymena and Newry, where maybe they're not getting results. I think Loughgall and Carrick can maybe just try and keep up with each other. I think they could be win out week by week.
Yeah, I just fancy them going blow for blow with this. I'd probably maybe lean Carrick just because Loughgall don't have that license. Maybe the card isn't as nice for them. It's Carrick at home as well for the head to head, so you sort of give them that as well. And it might just be a case of they're the big bold boys, and Loughgall are the nice pretty boys who are only new to the league. They'll be happy with just staying up. It might just push Carrick over the line that way.
Predictions, you're going to go Carrick. What about yourself, Joe? Who's going to win out that seventh place?
I'll go Loughgall, sure, make it interesting.
I'm going to be the decider here. I am just going to go Carrick. I think they have the bit between their teeth, and they have so many great attacking players who could take that jump upwards, and maybe, as Ross alluded to, it's the fact that they could maybe do business in this playoff will help them across the line, but they're a hard team to back. The one thing I feel like I do know is that Loughgall and Carrick, they will be fun teams to follow in the next few games because I think they will score a bucket load, but they might concede it as well, which makes it double fun. So the key thing we know now is that game 37 is going to be excellent. Before we get into our attempt to preview this weekend's games, I mean, we now know the crack with that ever fun championship. There was no other games across the top two divisions due to the Irish Cup this weekend. The final games in the championship are being played on a Friday night. That's fun.
I'm all over that.
It's a festival of football.
I'm all over that. I love it so much because I'd go on further. I'd even do the top split and the bottom split of the Premiership. Do them at different times as well. Let people get all the football.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I mean, maybe it's just us, the fact that we go to probably far too many games, to be honest, but I would love the ability to be able to go to all of those games. I mean, the championship this year, if you're keeping up with it, it's been absolutely brilliant. Even looking at that split, I mean, there's 6 points between fourth and first. So even at this point, it's anything could happen, really.
And what do we think will happen? I know your crew member, your faction member, Jack, is a Portadown fan. I've seen videos of you guys at Portadown games. You guys did the video of that winning goal against Bangor where there was that silence. Then the ball hit the back of the net and the ball boy went ballistic. One of my favourite moments of the season so far. Just was so funny. Are you guys, just through influence of your good friend Jack, somewhat on the Portadown bandwagon, or has there been a team that has impressed you more that you think would sneak it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I hear non-stop from Jack just how good Portadown are. So It's probably part of that is making me think they've put it down. I mean, they've had a great run of form all of a sudden. They're going into the split looking well. Dundela are obviously looking pretty good as well up there. I think in terms of teams that I really like Bangor. They've had a couple of results that maybe they wouldn't be too hot. Well, they won't be too happy with recently. But a couple of weeks ago, I thought Bangor would have been one of the ones that go up, and I would love to see them go up. Institute have been good as well, and all four of the sides are great. But I think probably with that experience of a lot of the players there with Portadown and Curry, I think they will be the ones that could maybe sneak it at the top.
I think Johnny McNabb was talking about it last week. We can kind of see it confirmed now. Portadown have 4 home games, and it looks as though they play their final away game at Bangor on Tuesday, which might be in the past for you, listener. They play on Tuesday, and then they have Anna, Welders, Dundela, and Institute, big rivals, last 2 games. So they can set themselves up and then figure out what they need. Institute play Bangor the second last game. Dundela against the Welders is on the final game of the season. Bangor at Anna. Those four teams will be playing off against each other intermittently in this. Dundela Bangor 13th of April. That's gonna be big. Question will be, can Dundela, it's in their hands now, can they keep up with these teams, motivate themselves to stay at top of it, despite really it all being for pride? You've only got 5 games to give it a go for pride. Momentum looks like it's in Portadown's hands because of all these late wins. But when the going gets tough, again, Tuesday could just change everything.
Yeah, I've been burnt by the Ports at the end of the season before. Last year they won a couple of games and I was tipping them for 10th at one point, and obviously that just didn't happen. So I'm hesitant to go all in on the Ports again because it feels like they get beat every week. Like it feels like Dundela beat them every week, and obviously they don't. But I've been caught out by them before. I still fancy Dundela to win it, and then that shootout for second is just huge after that playoff, because any of those 3 teams that could go up would fancy their chances against probably Ballymena.
Bangor are in 4th at the minute. They've got 60 points after 2 losses in a row, particularly to Institute and Portadown. Not advisable. Institute are 3rd with 61, just the 1 loss in the past 5 games. Who was that to? Portadown. So it shows the Institute are continue to be dangerous. Then 3 points above them is Portadown on 64. It shows what winning 5 games in a row will do for you. Dundela is bottom of that. Well, no, actually they're not. They're second bottom of that little form table between those 4. They drew last time out, and 3 wins in their last 5, as well as that 1 defeat. So they're on 66. They're in control. Interestingly, both Portadown and Dundela are on the same goal difference. That's 19. Dundela are, though, cinching it, not that they need to, based on goals scored. Institute are only 2 goals behind them. Who's going to win this goal difference battle? Well, it's going to be Bangor because they have 31. So that's almost like a point in the bag there as well. So Dundela win it. It goes down to second for whoever gets the playoff against the 12th side team. Dundela finish second. If they don't, any of these teams get it and Dundela finish second, 3rd will get it, the playoff. So it's not even a case of Dundela will knock out whoever in 1st or 2nd. If whoever wins the league isn't Dundela, 3rd place will benefit from this because it will go down to 3rd if Dundela are there. So hard to tell. A lot of big games, but I mean, it is just as fascinating, isn't it, as the top flight, because you have interesting teams, you have fun teams, you have high scoring teams, and the pressure is now on who can deliver.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, actually, we were saying we do go to championship games and we have been previous seasons, but with Portadown being down there and obviously Jack being a fan, we've got to do a lot more, and it's so interesting down there. It's actually, I think a lot of people sometimes maybe don't give the championship as much credit as it maybe deserves. I mean, even if you said to someone, look at these top 4 teams going into the split, if you had that in the Premiership, it would be absolutely amazing. So the fact it's down there is pretty good as well. So It's really interesting going into the split here.
It also shows what a snake pit the championship is to fall into, because let's say Newry or Ballymena singularly drop into this division, they'll have Dundela and two of Portadown, Institute or Bangor, even maybe a rejuvenated Welders and a United if they get themselves together, waiting there for them. In turn, if you have Ballymena and Newry both go down, they will have Dundela plus one of those other teams aside, and they're just thinking, oh my goodness, not only have to deal with the side that we've dropped down with, we've also got these other teams that are dying to jump up, and that could be competing against them, as well as teams that went up for players. We all know about the championship. It's been a revelation this year, and it's been one of the big bright sparks, or one of the things that has really ascended. But we'll wrap this up as we usually do, a preview of the games. We've talked a lot about these games, these fixtures anyway, but we'll do our best to try and figure out who, in fact, is playing who, as we are currently don't have it confirmed. First against Crusaders. Crusaders are in 5th. They will be 5th going into it. They will be playing first. So if it is Larne, it will be at Inver Park. If it's Linfield, it will be at Seaview. I don't know if we can assume there. I think whoever the team is that plays against them, you've got to think that they will be favourites going against the Crews and will probably have that wind up them to get the result. I would back either Larne or Linfield there. I don't think the fixture really matters. I don't think the venue really matters. I think it could be a 2-0 victory for them. And that just screams it's going to be a 1-1 or a weird win for the Crews, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I think that is exactly it. It's going to be whoever's in first is going to win that game, is the way I see it.
I think they've got to. You got to start this split strong. The first drop points, the other team or teams, if you're including Cliftonville, will just smell blood, and that could be you.
You then have whoever's second will definitely play against 4th and Glentoran. If it's Larne, it will be at the Oval, and if it's Linfield, it will be at the Oval. So there will be a game played at the Oval, unless, I don't know, there is like 2 centimetres of rain. You've got to admit that's a different fixture for Linfield to go into it, but based on that cup semi-final, it would be a big whack of revenge. Wouldn't it just be just typical if it's for some reason a draw or a victory for Glentoran against either of those teams? Again, can't see it. Probably another 2-0.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think so. As much as I don't want to tempt fate, I just don't think Glentoran have the revenge in them. And obviously that could be famous last words, but going off the other night, it was meek and it was toothless, and I don't think they'd be able to turn it around.
It'll be interesting to see how much of a different team the Glens would have there if it was to be against Linfield, or even if it's against Larne. But how much does Devine make a statement by going, maybe we start with Junior, we Fisher +1. Does Marshall start from the very beginning? What way do they change it up? 3 at the back, whatever. It's a big game for Devine there, especially if it's Linfield straight away, because there's a chance to go, forget about that, we've just completely ruined Linfield's title chances. So games come big, thick and fast. Cliftonville could be going against Coleraine up at the showgrounds, thinking we've just beat Larne twice in a week, maybe another win. Hey-ho. Gibson Cup, binoculars out.
Yeah, I think if a win against Larne here on Tuesday night, we're going up there. We're bouncing up there, up north. I mean, I think either way, don't get me wrong, that's a tough game up there. It is difficult enough, especially what Coleraine have done up there. But I think if we do have ambitions, obviously, and I think we need to be strong. And I don't think it'll be an easy game, but I think we will come through it.
I think Coleraine have got a wee bit of zip about them. I think this will be a score draw, maybe 1-1, 2-2, just based on all the football that Cliftonville will have played in the space of a week, and high intensity football as well, travelling up to Coleraine with a lot of attacking vigour. I'm not doubting Cliftonville's, but I think Coleraine could benefit and maybe score later on.
Yeah, you got to remember that Cliftonville are obviously only part-time. They love to tell you about it. So, the legs might go, I think you just want to go in, get your 3 points, and get out again.
Elsewhere in Section B, if we must call it that, I haven't thought of a silly name for these two yet. 7th against 11th, which looks like it's going to be Loughgall, bar of course the 8-1 victory for Carrick on Tuesday night. If it is Loughgall, they will play Ballymena at home. I think Loughgall will win that.
Yeah, I agree for sure. I could see it, unfortunately for Ballymena, being a bit of a walkover for Loughgall. Like a 3-0 or a 4-1.
Yeah,
I'm going to say I think it could be a lot of goals. Benji McGee's back. Ferris is on a nice little tear, despite there not being a screamer amongst them. And I've seen a lot of Loughgall. I think they'll play good football and have proven, actually time and time again, that they can tear this Ballymena team apart. And still, while the fact that 7th is in their grasp, regardless if it's just sentimental, I think Loughgall will try to latch on to that. That should be a victory for them. Dungannon against Carrick, down at Stangmore Park. As much as I was backing Carrick to score lots, I think this might be one of those mad score games that I'm predicting. I think 3-3.
yeah. I was thinking a 3-4 or a 4-3. Two sides score and concede in equal measure, and I just like that Dungannon fun factor coming into the end of the season. I just don't think they'll give a hoot, and they'll just they'll play nice football, and hey, if we win, we win, and if we don't, oh well, see you next year anyway.
Yeah, Glennie finding Mitchell, good result for Dungannon last time out. I think plenty of scoring either side. That pitch down at Stagmore suits it. 3-3 for me. Anything else fun, or are you going to predict something boring, Joe? Boo.
There's pressure on me now all of a sudden. I'm going to say 2-1 Carrick. I think they'll come through, but I think it'll be a tough enough game.
Shock of the weekend will come Newry City against Glenavon. It is going to be at Mornview Park. I'm going to say Newry 3-0.
That's it.
Maybe 3-1.
I mean, I don't entirely hate a Newry win prediction, but 3-0 is out there. I fancy them to maybe snatch a point. Glenavon have blown hot and cold all year, and especially recently. So, Newry will be looking at this as a chance to pick up something. But then the sickener for them is they might snatch a point and think happy days, and then Ballymena just go and win anyway. And what's the point?
It's like a massive chance for Newry if they come out of this with 0 points. That's a big blow.
Unfortunately, I could see it going that way. I'm not quite as optimistic for them. I could see it going against them. However, to make it interesting, I would love them to get the 3 points just to spice up that bottom of the table there.
If I had all of my windows open, all my little tabs open, and I'm watching all the games, I think Newry Glenavon is the one I've got my eyes on. You've got the fun, there's another goal there at maybe... I'm scudding all these games now, but you have all that thing there in the corner of Swifts against Carrick. Something about these two. Maybe it's because I saw this fixture early on in the season. I have a feeling it could all come together for Newry.
The tough thing for Newry is we're saying, you can't go away from this game with 0 points. That's just going to be 5 weeks in a row. And, talk about a pressure cooker. They have to pick up something every week when they've been doing the exact opposite of that for a good year and a half, 2 years now. The more I think about it, I think it'll be an absolute miracle run if Newry manages to stay up.
And then lose to a last minute penalty in the playoff to Institute. Highs and lows of football, we don't know, of course. Okay, that's our fare for this week. Big bonus episode. Hopefully that will be something where we all join together, boys, holding hands, and we do the pre-split preview or whatever our wacky title I decide to give it. 30 seconds before I hit upload. We can all do it together. Before you go, if we need to ask you even more questions, obviously they all know about Around the Grounds NI, your social pages where you're posting videos of fans taking breaths before goals. I'm fascinated to find out which side or who's getting custody of Jack for the cup final. Whoever does, I'll jump over with you guys, the other side of it. But I know this is avid listeners. I'm sure you already have it written down. You've done all your homework. Player of the year, hit me. Who is it? And I'll let you be little faders and name. Well, I think this one, but I also like you can name 3 players, but you have to pick one.
I don't even think I need to name 3. Can I be biased here and just say, well, if I'm doing 3, throw Ben Wilson in there. Why? I know he hasn't been playing recently. Why not? Johnny Addis and Casey. Why not? But if I'm picking one, Addis.
Now you do know this is Player of the Year for the entire league.
Oh no, well, yeah, absolutely. But those answers don't change.
And the whole entire year, I haven't seen Ben Wilson since like October.
That's not the point. Did you see him at the start of the season though? Wow.
Joe, I'm really glad this is at the end of the podcast so people don't lose credibility at the very start. Anyway, yes, Ross.
I will go. I think the answer is Kyle McLean, I think. But then I also have a hard Rory Hales work and Jimmy Mulgrew sleeper pick.
Joe, do you think the Cal McLean hype is real, or he's like that weird film during Oscar season where everybody's talking about it and all of a sudden people are like, oh yeah, let's give it to the artist, that weird black and white movie? Like, I'm not saying Cal McLean hasn't had a good season, but I mean, I think the last 3 weeks have been particularly good, and that's like helping a lot.
Yeah, I think that definitely is helping. I mean, in all seriousness, he has had a brilliant season though. Like I think he is, as much as I hate to say it, he is a very, very good player. If we're being serious about it, I don't hate it as a shout for player of the season, but I do think he's been brilliant, and I think he will continue to be brilliant. In terms of a shout out for a player that I think has been a wee bit unlucky in terms of the team he's at, Fraser for Ballymena has, anytime I've seen him, has been absolutely outstanding. Now, not player of the season, but just as a shout out for someone who, if he stays in the league and ends up at a different team, he is an absolute player.
I look forward to Glentoran fans saying he should be starting in some sort of different position next year. I'm sure there's someone that absolutely hates the end of the podcast. I keep asking people this like 3 months for the end of the season, but I don't care. Boys, it's been great to have you back. I've already done the plug. Where can people find you? Joe, think of another fake Twitter account to plug yourself, while Ross tells us the one that he actually knows and uses.
So for the business account, that'll be at Around the Grounds on Instagram and TikTok, and AT Grounds NI on Twitter. And then my personal stuff is Ross Welsh 8, which is just, if you're not getting enough waffle in this hour and a half, you'll get a little bit more there.
I've done my research this time, so Insta is Joseph_McCallion24 and Twitter is Joseph_McCallion, but it's all on the business account, as Ross says.
Fellas, I look forward to our little summer excursions and fun time pods, but until then, we've got lots of football to get into. We didn't answer who's bullying Jack into their end for the cup final.
He's already said he's with me. He says he's all red.
He's all red. He can wear his Portadown top into the game.
He will do.
And get away with it that way. Boys, been a delight as always. Until next time, enjoy your Easter eggs.
Thanks very much, Peter. All the best.
Another great pod, another excellent week. What a league to follow this is. Thanks so much to the Around the Grounds boys. Always nice to have a little collective on the pod. Another thing I should say to you, yes, directly to you listening, I just want to say a wee thank you. Had a great week just the week before last. It was all nice last week, of course, but last week we were able to enter the top 100 in football, or quote-unquote soccer podcasts on Apple Podcasts, and that is both in Ireland as well as Great Britain. I peaked at 70 in the UK charts, and I peaked at 34 in the Irish charts. So if you're one of the people out there that listened last week, I am very, very thankful for that. That's a nice little thing to see the pod grow, and it's a nice little time to have it up there. So thank you. If you are a follower or listen to the podcast, or you think you want to be one, I've got a good idea to do that. You go on to Apple Podcasts or maybe Spotify, whatever your podcast player of choice. Click the little button on the home page of the Kicking Match page, profile, whatever it is, on the player, and just select follow, subscribe. It means that you get the most up-to-date podcasts sent your way. Don't need to refresh, don't need to check back. It's free. What's not to love? Another thing you can do, follow the pod, collect them all, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. It's Kicking Match on all of them. So much football to go between now and the end of the season, and I know you want to join me online with all the chat, all the crack, all the analysis, and all the witty banter too. Thanks for listening this week, and maybe I'll see you next time. Until next time, cheerio.